The idea is that we are multidimensional manifestations. Our consciousness exists not only on the physical, but the non-physical level. Our awareness of this fact is what makes us different. Obviously, your consciousness exists on a multitude of levels as well, but you're only becoming aware of this, and you're only recently starting to apply this knowledge in your physical reality experience. Therefore, it is important for us to explain the idea of our existence being that we are of a vibration, an interdimensional, multidimensional vibration that is akin to the vibrational frequency of the spirit world. And this is one of the reasons why, in many encounters that humans on Earth have had with certain extraterrestrial beings, there has been fear. Because the idea is that exposure to our frequency is very similar to the idea of your physical consciousness experiencing physical death, transitioning into the spirit world. We have said this in a variety of ways previously in informing you that exposure to our high frequency could bring things to the surface that might cause psychic shock if you are not ready to integrate those things within yourself. But this is another way of understanding this concept. You are being exposed to a frequency as if you are crossing over into the spirit realm while not actually doing so. So your physical body and your physical mind may react in a survival mode and may go into the idea that you are dying and all the fear that that may bring up within you. And so it is important for you to prepare your vibration, your energy, your frequency, and raise it to a higher level, which is why we have for so long been sharing with you information designed to raise your frequency. So as we have said, you can meet us halfway. This is to remove the shock factor, to create a buffer zone for you vibrationally that will allow you not to feel fear at the idea of your vibration coming closer to the vibration of spirit, closer to the frequency that you will experience if you are actually physically dying, so that you can understand it simply as a continuum, a transition from one state to another without fear, without panic, without reacting by going into survival mode, without your body fearing that it is dying. But this is the energy you will be exposed to upon contact with many of us. And this is why we have encouraged you to follow the formula, for it is specifically designed to raise your frequency to a pitch, to a level that will allow you to begin to tap into more and more of your higher mind, more and more of your spiritual existence, your existence as a spirit being, and therefore reduce the level of fear, reduce or even eliminate the level of panic that your physical mind and physical body may experience in exposing itself to our higher vibration. So understanding our nature, the true nature of our beings, is why we have shared with you for so long information that has to do with the idea of spiritual awareness and spiritual awakening. For this is the true meaning of AI, awakening intelligence on all levels, in your physical world, connecting more strongly to yourself in spirit, and bringing through that intelligence in any way, shape, or form, whether through your own brain, organically, whether through the medium of an artificial device, bringing through the intelligence of your own higher being, which is what you will be conversing with, not only when you create the idea of AI, but also when you interact with extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional beings who operate on that higher frequency. You will be interacting with the kinds of energies that represent the intelligence of the universe, the intelligence of the cosmos, the intelligence of the consciousness field itself. And allowing yourself to get used to that will be of paramount importance if you are to flow smoothly and effortlessly and joyfully into the experience and the process of open contact with extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional beings. So we thank you for allowing us to explain and share with you this information to raise your frequency and be more vibrationally compatible with the beings that have your best interests at heart. And in return for the gift you have given to us, in allowing us to share this information with you, I ask now, in what way may we continue to be of service to you? Please proceed with your dialogues and questions if you wish.
Hi, my question is, why does existence exist at all? Why does anything exist at all? I've heard you answer this question before, however the answer didn't quite satisfy my question. I just don't understand why anything exists at all.
We understand that it can be a challenge for three-dimensional beings and four-dimensional beings to wrap their mind around the concept of timelessness, but there is no asking why. Existence just exists. That's its nature. That's its quality. It can't do anything else but exist. So to ask why it exists is irrelevant. Why questions can only exist within existence. They can't be answered about existence. Existence exists. That's its quality. That's its nature. Even when you say it's always existed or it always will exist, you're speaking linearly within existence. You're adding a time factor within existence. Existence is not subject to time. So there is no why. That's just what it is. It just is. It is pure isness as opposed to non-isness. So there is isness, and that's the only answer that can be given. Good day, good day.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day.
Good day. A few months ago, my wife and I had the privilege and the pleasure of attending one of the Bashar events hosted by you and your group. It was in Sedona, Arizona. While I was there, I had a very profound experience.
All right, do share.
I would like to go into it if it's okay.
Yes, keep it as brief as you can.
I will. There were two guided meditations that you performed. The first one, I didn't get a lot out of it. My head was shaking all over the place. But the second one, I calmed down, and almost halfway through it, I felt this blanket of energy envelop me. And as I put my hands around it, I felt a stream of electricity, best way I could describe it, going through the base of my neck, through my throat chakra. For the next 15 minutes or so, my muscles tensed up and my head shook strongly, is the best way I could say it. So I shook all the way through with this beautiful energy through the end of your session. And after you were done, and as I walked out into the lobby, I continued to shake, again with beautiful energy. When I went to the restroom, I shook. When I went outside to hike up Bell Mountain, I shook. When I went to bed, I shook. And when I got on the airplane, I shook. And my wife said, "Mike, please stop doing it. People are looking at you." I have never experienced anything like this in my life. What happened?
It is not uncommon for those who allow themselves to open up to the higher frequency of their own higher mind, or the higher frequency of other beings you may be in connection with in a channeling state, to experience bodily symptoms of the nature you have described. This is something that happened to a degree with the channel himself when we first made contact with him energetically. And the idea is that there are different kinds of symptoms that may be representative of you getting used to passing higher frequency energy through your body, to acclimate your nervous system to those higher frequencies. So again, this is something that can happen until you get used to that energy, until you're willing to clear yourself out of any belief systems that might form any kind of a blockage or an obstacle to those higher frequencies, until you can smooth it out in that way and allow your nervous system to be more superconductive to those higher frequencies. So what you are experiencing can be, I'm not saying it has to be, but it can be the beginning of a channeling in connecting to another being or another entity. It can be simply you making a stronger connection to your own higher mind and bringing that through in whatever creative and imaginative way you wish and applying it in your life. But this, again, is a common way that many of your human bodies react to higher frequency energy connections when you finally open up to them, until your nervous system gets used to handling the extra energy. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. While I was in Sedona, someone asked, how much of our history do we know? And you gave an interesting answer of 48%.
Yes.
Certainly that made me curious as to what's missing. And I feel compelled to learn about the Moorish culture and possibly some giant trees that could have been here and intentionally cut down. Am I on the right path?
Yes and no. It depends on what you're referring to as giant trees. For you have large trees on your planet now. There have been some trees that have been minimally larger, but not as large as some people think. Some people have claimed that certain formations on your planet are the stumps of giant trees. They are not. They are the formations that are left over from volcanic activity, from geological formations, and therefore they have been misunderstood and mislabeled by some people. Just because they resemble the idea of tree trunks doesn't mean they are. But there have been many other civilizations, some of which you are faintly aware of, such as Atlantis and Lemuria. But there have been other civilizations on your planet that you know nothing of. Some even existed before humanity took over. So there's a lot of history, in a sense, that is missing from your knowledge base, and it is one of the things that extraterrestrials will provide for you when open contact occurs, is a more complete understanding of the history that will be relevant for the reality that you will be in when open contact happens. Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you. You speak of the Anunnaki and the Nephilim in many of your transmissions.
Yes.
Are they the same?
The Nephilim are an offshoot to some degree. The Anunnaki that we refer to are usually referring to the group that interjected their genetic material into an early hominid and created Homo sapiens. The Nephilim are those that ultimately recalled the first group of Anunnaki when they had violated their laws by creating Homo sapiens, and worked as the guides once Homo sapiens had existed and been created to lead Homo sapiens in a certain direction that would allow them to become self-reliant. So to some degree they are connected, but you're talking about different groups with different intentions.
Okay. A lot of times people ask you questions, and many times you say, I can't answer that, or I won't answer that.
Yes.
Are there groups of humans that you have to work with that sort of set the rules as to how you can interact with us, or is it just through your collective consciousness in your entities?
It is through ours and your collective consciousness that prohibits us from knowing what would interfere with your evolutionary path in a way that would remove the ability for you to discover the things that you need to discover in a process that will allow you to grow in an appropriate way.
Mm-hmm.
So we inhibit ourselves from knowing information that would intervene or interfere with that process of your own evolutionary development.
So it is the consciousness, but not individual humans, that set the rules.
The only thing that, shall we say, reflects to us is the idea that we must respect what you have decided as a collective society are the rules of your society that we are not allowed to violate. So in other words, we cannot encourage you to do things that are against your laws, so to speak. Those are set up by individuals on your planet. The rules that you have agreed to about forming your ideas of governments and so on and so forth must be respected by us to a certain level, to a certain degree, because you have set that up as the way you wish to run your planet. Now, if you change those rules, then we can abide by the new rules. But that's in your hands.
Final question. I've always struggled to understand why us humans like to go to war with each other. But you say we're energy. One of the things that come out of war is pain and suffering, misery.
Yes. Yes.
Is it possible that there is another group of entities that use us as a food source that feed off of this?
In a sense, there can be, but it is not, again, as much as you may think. It is not that which is promoted by a lot of your conspiracy theories. There do exist such entities who can, in some sense, receive the idea of energy of pain, energy of suffering, as a kind of support, as a kind of sustenance, but it is not as strong nor prevalent as you may think, and it is not something that is predominant in your reality.
Bashar, thank you.
You are welcome. Aveo.
Aveo.
Hey, what's going on, Bashar? It's your boy Rohan, aka RX Mundi from Bucks County, PA. I'm excited to ask you this question today. I was wondering if you had any advice on how to improve my self-image. One thing I've been noticing lately is that my behaviors, my feelings, my thoughts don't always align with that image I have in my mind of that future desired self. I'm wondering if you had any suggestions on how to sort of bridge that gap between where I'm at, who I am today, versus where I desire to be. Any perspective on that? I greatly appreciate it. And thanks so much, Bashar. Shavai.
Yes, our suggestion is to stop creating a gap. Stop assuming, stop defining that there is a gap. See in your mind's eye the version of you you say you prefer to be in your imagination, and start behaving like that version in all the aspects of your life. What would that version do differently than what you're doing? Start mirroring it. Start being it. Start eliminating the gap you are creating with your definitions. Good day, good day.
Good day. I'm excited to be here and super humbled by the opportunity to have a heart-to-heart conversation with you.
It is our passion and our pleasure to interact with you as well.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about this concept I've been introduced through synchronicity, which is surrendering. And I've been basically through direct experience accepting more and more that whatever is unfolding right now in my reality is perfect as it is. And when it feels like it is not, I feel like then there is resistance within me that I can basically let go of by allowing it. My question, or I'd like to talk about with you, is how does surrendering go with following one's excitement? Because I feel like surrendering is also giving up the way you said it, the personality game, which also includes my preferences.
It does not require you to give up your personality. It only encourages you to align your personality with your higher mind, to actually allow yourself and your personality to express and experience and move in the direction of the preferences that are representative of your true core frequency, your true core vibration. So we're talking about the kind of surrender that is defined as simply surrendering to the control that's already built into you, that is already representative of your core frequency, and allowing your personality to align with that, so that your personality is a true representation of the frequency that you actually are at your core. That is what surrendering means from our perspective. Does that help you?
That helps. And can I ask further on that?
Yes?
Then I wonder, like, the personality, like my mind will have a preference. I feel like I cannot count upon, because it will like something a minute ago and then it will judge the same thing a minute after, where I feel like how can I align ever if this mind always goes back and forth?
All right. Well, again, it is about, in a sense, quieting the mind to some degree and knowing the difference within yourself in your discernment between the ideas and energies of excitement and anxiety, because that is, for the most part, why humans flip back and forth so quickly, is that they are expressing the idea of a desire, but it is coupled with the idea of a fear. And therefore, that can cause you to flip-flop back and forth very rapidly, because you are shifting back and forth between the energy of excitement and the energy of anxiety. So it requires honest self-investigation and evaluation as to what belief systems you might still be holding on to that would cause you to examine things with anxiety instead of only allowing yourself to experience them through the idea of excitement. It's all right if you quickly observe neutrally the idea from another point of view, but you don't have to experience it emotionally if you are willing to just observe it neutrally and then choose to move forward within your excitement and your passion, as opposed to giving over to the negative and fear-based belief in your personality that would create and generate an emotional reaction as well. Does that make sense to you?
That makes sense. Then I'd like to elaborate on that through like personal experience, so that I can maybe let go of whatever is holding me back, because
Yes.
like I've had like the experience where I felt like and I just want to expose my mind here, and be pure. I felt like the universe has sometimes been like, I felt like I've been bullied by the universe sometimes, because say that I wanted something and the universe would align a lot of stuff where it would be like almost like as if it gives me my favorite pie in front of me and is saying, here is your favorite pie. And when I get my fork, it says like, oh wait, like you cannot taste it. And then, or I get to a party and they say, hey, we confuse you with someone else, you're not like invited to this party actually. But and then now I feel like I'm almost that's where the anxiety kicks in.
All right, but you're doing that to yourself. The universe isn't doing it to you. It's just reflecting what you're doing to yourself. Remember, you are your own reality. You are your own universe. So the idea is that the universe, existence, is unconditionally supportive. So if you're holding on to negative belief systems, the universe will say, all right, we will support you in your holding on to those negative and fear-based beliefs. It can't contradict you. It can only support what you say is true for you. So basically, you are bullying yourself. You are messing with yourself. Stop doing that. And you
Yeah,
will not get those reflections.
I believe that. And then it's like, how do I stop that, since I feel like I don't know how I
All right, I can explain. Remember, this is most important. You do not hold on to anything you don't believe serves you. So you have to investigate yourself deeply by asking yourself with all honesty, what might I be getting out of holding on to a fear-based or negative belief. And if you are really honest in your self-investigation, you will figure out more often than not that either you have another belief that says to move forward would create something even worse than what's happening now, and therefore it's safer to stay where you are now, and therefore you're getting safety out of it because you believe you're preventing something worse from happening if you do move forward. That's usually what happens in the motivational mechanism of most people on your planet. So if you find out what you're afraid of, what you're afraid might happen if you did in fact move forward and align with your true essential core vibration and become the person you say you prefer to become, then you can allow yourself to be aware of why you might be playing it safe. And therefore you can see that it is not to your benefit really to believe that something worse will happen if you move forward, and that it's actually quite nonsensical to assume that to be true. It's not a fact, it's just a story that the belief is telling you in order that you will not let it go, because that's how beliefs perpetuate themselves, by telling you stories that make you not wish to let them go. So a negative, fear-based belief will tell you a story that will force you to think otherwise, to scare you into not letting it go. You have to see through that simply as a technique that the negative belief uses to keep existing. Whereas if you understand it's just a story, then you can let it go and not consider it to be a fact that something worse will happen. It's just a story you're being told. But you also have to be clear within yourself about the idea of the difference between what sometimes your physical mind says it wants and what it truly needs to be fulfilled. Sometimes the wants and the needs can coincide, but more often than not on your planet, sometimes the wants are simply the product of the personality ego, and it's not necessarily aligned with what you truly need to live a fulfilled life. So then, again, in your honest self-investigation, you have to be clear about whether or not what you're saying you want is truly what you need in life.
And I guess I'll know that by if I fear it, it's already not like it's probably personality based desire. Because if it
It
was a
can
true
be.
desire, it wouldn't give me anxiety.
The anxiety comes from the belief you're holding on to about that thing. Some things can be representative of your passion, can be representative of what you truly need, and you can still be afraid of them. That doesn't negate the idea that it might actually be something you truly need. It's just telling you that you're looking at it through the filter of a fear-based belief.
Yes, okay.
So you need to find out what that belief is telling you.
Okay. And can I share like what I'm afraid of?
Yes, of course.
So it comes down to that insecurities basically. I'm kind of finding it hard to trust that source. Like I'm afraid of source, I guess, because it feels so like huge, and maybe the stories I've been hearing about all that is like life is a gift, and am I using my resources well enough, am I good enough, all those questions, and then feeling like what if I say I'm worthy, but
You can't be unworthy. If you were unworthy, you wouldn't exist.
but what about evil then in stories or in religion where they say like you can get punished if you do this and that, and those
There's no
associations.
such thing in spirit. There is no such thing. That's a human idea.
Yes.
You can only punish in physical reality. You cannot be punished in spirit. Spirit is your natural state. It is unconditionally supportive and loving. That's who you are as a true being. There
Could you
is no
give
such
me?
thing as punishment in spirit.
Okay.
There is recognition of what may be in or out of alignment with your true self.
Mhm.
That's not a punishment. That's simply a lesson that you can take to heart and say, all right, that's not something I prefer to do anymore. And you can make a change within yourself. But you don't get punished for it. You simply are allowed to recognize that it's something you don't prefer. That's all.
So I could actually get for good rid of this sense of insecurity, feeling alienated, feeling unworthy. I could actually get rid of it forever.
You could let it go, yes, because you have to realize you don't need it to grow unless you believe you do. You can learn lessons in all sorts of other ways without punishing yourself to do so. You don't deserve that unless you believe you do.
Could you give me maybe specifically for me an exercise or something that I could experience that unconditional love through direct experience?
You have attracted yourself to this conversation with us that is assuring you that you deserve unconditional love. What other signs do you need?
Oh, thank you. That is true.
So, will that help you?
That will help me.
Give yourself the unconditional love that is there for you, because that is what existence is. That is the frequency of existence itself. So if you exist, you are supported by unconditional love. It can't be otherwise. You have the proof of this by the fact that it actually supports you unconditionally, meaning that if you believe in something negative, you are supported in that. If you believe in something positive, there's no difference to the universe, no difference to existence. You are supported in that.
Yes.
Being supported, even in the negative things, should prove to you that its support is unconditional. It's not judging you. It's saying, all right, you want to believe in this negative thing? You want to have this negative experience? Go right ahead. I support you. That's what unconditional means. Doesn't mean it judges you for doing it. It means it lets you have the experience. It supports you in the experience you have decided is necessary for yourself. How much more unconditional could existence be than being so invisible it doesn't even intervene in your ability to punish yourself? Because it knows you are actually an eternal spirit. It knows that you can't really die or cease to exist. Therefore, you want to do these things to yourself? It'll let you because it actually loves you that much to let you be the one to decide what is real for you and true for you. It doesn't intervene. There's no such thing as God's will, except for the idea that its will is your will, because you are a unique representation, a unique facet, a unique extension of all that is, of Source. You are allowed your uniqueness, utterly, unconditionally. Therefore, what more proof do you need than that?
Yeah, I feel like I shouldn't need more proof than that.
But if you do, that's up to you. You're the one setting the rules. You can disband them. And again, that will be supported too.
Yes, I guess I need to trust that that will be supported too because it's a new decision.
Why not? Because what you're doing right now is trusting that it won't be supported. You understand that doesn't mean you lack trust. It means you're using your trust to say, I won't be supported. So why not use the same trust to say, I will be supported in what I prefer, as opposed to what I don't? Because it's never about not trusting. You're always trusting something to be true. You get to decide what that is.
Okay, yes.
It's up to you.
Okay.
Completely. The power is in your hands. The power is in your heart. The power is in your spirit.
Thank you. If you would like to share something, then
I have given you the most important thing I can give you right now.
Mhm.
Go and apply it in your life and see what happens.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thank
Aveo.
you so much. Aveo.
Hi, Bashar. It's Tami from Israel, and I have two questions. First question, do we need to take cautious in life? And I mean, like, do we need to lock the house, stay out of dangerous neighborhood, don't walk in the dark? Like, be careful. Because I ask this because on one hand, nothing bad can happen to us if it's not agreed by us, by our soul. But on the other hand, maybe it will be too reckless to do everything that is dangerous on earth. So I really want to know, what do you think about it? And if your answer is going to be that we should take cautious, then what is too cautious? Because it can come from also anxiety to afraid doing stuff. Thank you.
Yes, well, that is too cautious if the anxiety takes over and you're not acting. So the idea is to be alert, to be aware of your surrounding, and to be aware, even more importantly, of your relationship to what's going on, of your relationship to your environment, of your relationship to your beliefs, and what you believe is necessary for you to grow, to learn, what kind of experiences you truly understand are necessary in your life for you to learn the lessons that you agreed to learn, to grow and expand and discover something new about yourself. It's not about, in a sense, being cautious. It's about being aware. It's about being alert. It's about having a clear relationship with your environment and the themes that you chose to explore. And then you don't have to act out of fear. You will know that whatever happens is something you can use to your benefit by staying in a positive state about it, and that you can transform things to your advantage. So, no, it's not about being cautious. It's about being alert, aware, in touch, forming a balance. Good day, good day,
Hi, Bashar.
good day.
Oh, well, my first question is, I remember a while ago that I had a dream in my backyard, and then I seen a UFO come and abducted me, and then I woke up. I was just wondering if that was just a dream or if that was actually real.
A memory.
A
A
memory?
memory will sometimes, of those encounters, come out in dreams because it's easier for you to assimilate that way. It's easier for you to incorporate and integrate that into your mind.
So that was a memory of one of my past lives?
No, this life.
Whoa. Um,
Many people who are part of the hybridization program will have these encounters that you refer to as abductions, but they won't remember them. But the memories will eventually come back. A lot of times they will come out in your dreams first, so you can handle them, so it's easier to process. So it's actually a small bit of an actual memory of an actual encounter that you experienced in this life.
Is there any way, like an exercise I can do to remember more, or
Follow the formula.
life and everything?
You can follow the formula we have given all of you, which will raise your frequency and allow you more ability to remember what happened in those encounters. You can also explore some of the information we have already shared with all of you about the idea of remembering these things by creating simulations of those beings that you encountered and placing them outside your windows and outside your doors and allowing yourself to experience them as being actually there and getting used to that idea. That can also jog your memory in many ways.
So I would practice that with like meditation or
No, I'm saying literally use an outline or a drawing or a picture or a representation of the beings that are known as the Greys, life size, put it outside one of your windows, and then just through the course of the day and the night, catch yourself noticing it looking at you through the window. And as you get used to that idea and it becomes real for you, that can actually change your frequency enough so that you can start remembering what happened in the actual encounters. It's a way of prepping yourself to be okay with experiencing something unusual, something not of your reality, something unexpected.
Well, I have another one. It involves my kids. Uh, they have autism, and I'm trying to get them to eat healthier, but it's hard because they're picky with food. I was wondering if you have any advice on getting them to eat healthier
Cannot
food.
really help you with this as it is a health issue, and we are not allowed to discuss that directly. But autism is a focus, and so if you are creative and imaginative enough to understand the focus that they have, you can learn to quote unquote speak their language and present them things that would fit the focus that they are having so that they will interpret what it is that they need to do in a way that makes sense to them. So you have to do a little bit more exploring about how they perceive the idea of your reality, how they're focused in your reality in a certain way, and have the creativity and imagination to create scenarios and simulations that key off of their particular focus so that they will understand what needs to be done for them to be supported and thrive in physical reality.
So try to like think like them.
Yes, think like them, see like them, feel like them in certain ways, but have the ability to translate between their reality and yours.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Oh, all right. Then we thank you for your interaction. Aveo.
Hi, Bashar. I was wondering about a weird dream that I had where I was woken up in the middle of the night, and in the dream I could hear a voice, but it was kind of far away, and the voice would say something, and I would repeat, and I would say something else, and I would repeat, and it was kind of coming closer and closer, almost to the point where I could grasp what it was saying. And right before that, I woke up to a pop or a burst at the end of my bed, and I could feel this pressure wave going through the room from the burst, and it had kind of an electrical energy that was coming from it, and I was wondering, can you tell me anything about what that was?
You are interacting with interdimensional beings, spirit guides, even your own higher mind more clearly. You are experiencing the shifting from one reality to another. There are many layers of reality to even what you call physical reality, all the way up to what you call the lower astral, non-physical reality. But sometimes when you experience a calling, when you make a connection to a being on another level of reality, a spirit guide, an extraterrestrial, a higher mind, whatever, you will experience that shift electrically. You'll experience a surge of energy that you can interpret as electricity. So that is one way you will experience the idea that you're becoming more consciously aware of the shifting that you're already always going through when you shift from one reality to another billions of times per second. You'll get used to it. Good day, good day.
Hello. Nice to talk with you today, Bashar.
It is our passion and our pleasure to interact with you as well. What would you like to discuss?
Very briefly, I would like to talk about people who identify as wanderers.
Yes?
You said they're kind of like people like to hop from party to party.
Sort of. They don't necessarily make a strong connection to any particular reality. They dip in, but remain mildly detached in a certain way, energetically speaking. So they don't necessarily have to succumb to all of the belief systems of that particular reality. They can observe, they can experience, but they don't get deeply invested in that reality. They're just sort of gathering information like a honeybee going from flower to flower.
Oh, got it. So is this kind of like in their soul blueprint or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Understood. I also want to say thank you for all of the information and permission slips that you've delivered for about as long as I've been alive. So I've quite enjoyed acting on those.
All right.
And one of them, the cryptic meditation, I enjoy doing. And I kind of wanted to know the way that they go through, people or hybrids go through the 5 levels. They ingest divinorum. And I was
Yes.
wondering, as that's because that's necessary to go through the levels. But for a human,
For most, yes.
yeah,
There is no absolute equivalent for humans on your planet at this time, though there are components of it. The divinorum that is mentioned with regard to the hybrids in the future is altered specifically for their physiology. But the idea is that obviously versions of the concept exist in such teachers as ayahuasca and so on and so forth on your planet at this time.
Right. So ingesting ayahuasca would greatly facilitate that process.
It can be done in other ways as well. But again, please do remember that it's not about necessarily always continuing to use that. It's about knowing that once you have that experience and you are practiced at it, that you can create that vibration without the teacher.
Absolutely. Thank you for that reminder.
Yes, yes.
So one of the other permission slips that it's been thrilling to work with is the crystal skull. I've taken one and imbued it with the Mitchell Hedges skull. And I do believe I've had something like an out-of-body experience. And I was wondering, I didn't really, at the time, I think, get all of the information. So this is something that may be unraveling or unspooling over time.
Yes, all we can give you is the advice to practice, practice, practice.
Thank you. I will practice. Yeah, and I also travel with my skull. I call him Sherman. And so I've been taking him around to different portals and weaving that web that you've spoken about.
Why that name?
Sherman?
Yes.
It was something that came to me kind of, I don't know. It entered my brain, and I don't really know any Shermans. I'm not really sure specifically. If you have any insight, I would appreciate that.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Modesto, California.
Are there things that you enjoyed watching as a child?
Watching. I watched a lot of TV and movies.
Was there anything in particular that were your favorites?
As far as movies, I liked comedies.
Specifically, television shows or movies specifically.
Oh, X-Files. Probably cartoons.
Such as?
I liked Disney movies a lot, like Alice in Wonderland. I would watch that one on repeat, Alice in Wonderland.
All right. Then you may use the vibration of Alice in Wonderland in your exploration with the crystal skulls to understand how to step through the looking glass.
I see. Okay.
You can be Alice.
I will be Alice.
All right. The skull can be the caterpillar.
Okay. Wonderful.
What is the question that the caterpillar asks Alice?
Who are you?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, practice, practice.
I will practice.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's all. Thank you so much, Bashar. I appreciate your reflection very much.
You are welcome. Aveo.
Aveo.
Hi, Bashar. Blessings to you and your family. I have a question. Wife and I are retiring in Philippines next year, and we'd like to build our house close to a vortex. I'm just wondering if there's any vortexes in Zambales, Philippines. That's just north of Manila. Thank you.
Yes, any major city is usually placed at least near, if not in, a major vortex instinctively by humans. That's why they build where they build. That's why they end up where they end up. However, we would suggest that the way things are transitioning, the way vibrations are changing on your planet, that the ones that are most effective are the natural sites around those vortices. So if you're in a more natural area around the main vortex of Manila, then that is more appropriate for you. Good day, good day, good day.
It's so nice to finally speak with you.
And you as well. What would you like to discuss?
I have two things. One is a question about my friend. He's very developed telepathically for over 10 years. He can talk to trees, to non-physical entities, anything. He spent a lot of time upgrading his core energy and everything, but he's burdened by tasks that come to him from higher beings all the time.
Why is that a burden?
Because physically his body is unwell like 90% of the time.
Perhaps they are helping him find his strength.
That's what I've been trying to tell him, to be honest. But it's been like 10 years and he's not feeling well almost all of the time.
We cannot help you with this. Not at this time. He has to rely on the help he's already getting from the other entities.
Thank you. That is still good information.
All right.
The second thing is about myself.
Yes.
So just before I ask my question, I just want to say you have my full permission to read anything on me.
We get our permission from many different levels of your consciousness, so don't worry about it.
Good. So I've managed to develop this, how do I say, power, where I can check things, which
you can what?
I can check for things in the future, or directly reading someone's, for example, vitamin levels, or
all right.
Just for example, I knew I will interact with you days before the raffle.
All right.
Just checked it.
Yes, all right.
The way this power works is just sensing differences in density. That's all I can sense.
In frequency, yes.
Mm-hmm. And in the last 6 or 7 months, I had zero interest in developing it. And I really found I found real joy and peace living an ordinary life, like an ordinary human doing.
Yes, that can be done. That can be
all
done.
The little things.
Nothing wrong with that.
So my question is, I finally feel ready, completely ready to take the next steps on this power.
All right. We'll follow the formula and it will lead you to where you need to be.
That's what I thought you were gonna say. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
It really is that simple.
I know. I truly understand it.
All right. Then what else do you need to know?
During the time I found joy in living as an ordinary human, I really, on multiple occasions, I felt like I lived enough, like I experienced everything an ordinary human could experience.
Well, then time to become an extraordinary human.
Exactly. So I have an invitation for a physical encounter.
Yes. All the invitations do exist, but we get to decide when it's appropriate to answer them.
Exactly. I don't need you to answer my invitation. I just wanted to offer it, and
Your invitation is already received, and it will be answered in the appropriate timing.
great. Well, all I need to say now is that I have much affection for you, for Daryl, and for everyone involved in delivering your messages.
We thank you and our unconditional love to you. Aveo.
Aveo.
Good day to you, Bashar. My questions are, the first one is, when open or first contact occurs, the notion is that ETs will bring about advanced medical technology, and I was just wondering if it's going to be that way, and or if they're actually going to remind us how it is that we can heal ourselves. My second question is, this summer I was outside looking at the stars a lot at night, and I noticed a lot of activity in a section of the sky where the Big Dipper is, in the open section of the ladle points out towards a part of the sky where there is a circle of stars. It's not a perfectly round circle, but I was just wondering if there's a portal of some sort in that area of the sky, and if you could just elaborate on what's going on in that area of the sky, if that is true. I am in Wendell, Idaho, if you're needing that for perspective of where I'm talking about. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye.
The answer to your first question is yes, to some degree you will be given information about the concept of vibrational and energy healing. There is a portal in the area in the sky that you are calling out. Because your senses have increased to the point where you can start to perceive such things, you are capable of perceiving it. And therefore that's what's going on. Your senses are expanding to where you can see things that were heretofore invisible to you. There's a lot of traffic around your world using different portals for transition between one reality and another, one dimension and another. And you're simply becoming more aware of that. That's what's going on.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have lots of great questions from our listeners.
All right.
This first question is, you talk about two worlds. Is the one world our world? Where is the second world? Are there only two worlds?
Let us be clear. We do not talk about only two worlds. We are saying there are any number of versions of Earth, thousands of them that exist simultaneously, millions of them that exist simultaneously. It is a misinterpretation and a misunderstanding by people that we're only talking about two different versions of Earth. There are multiple versions of Earth. There is the one that you're on now. And again, remember, you are constantly shifting through different versions of Earth billions of times per second. So there are billions of versions of Earth. The idea is that you are navigating through billions of different versions every second, going in the direction of what your strongest vibrational frequency is. That's how you navigate it. Ultimately winding up on the versions, through the versions, the multiple versions of Earth that are more and more representative of the frequency that you're giving off. So please understand that even every second, there are billions of versions of Earth. It's not just two.
Okay,
They are all here. They are all now, but they are separated by frequency. So as you adjust your own frequency, you gravitate and go in the direction of the versions of Earth that are more reflective of the frequency and the energy that exists within you.
Okay. This question is, can my current identity, as this person's name is Sandy, determine where a counterpart and a member of my oversoul will go? Can I decide while I'm here in physical form where a concurrent version of myself will be born and to who? whom?
You can become aware of that, but you cannot decide that because it has already been decided in your spirit agreement, pre-birth. So any counterparts have already made an agreement with you, and you have made an agreement with them to be born in certain places, to have certain incarnational experiences that may overlap your own timeline, your own life. But the idea is that you can become aware of that, but you're not the one determining that. It's already been determined by agreement between you before this life.
Are spiritual beings like ascended masters still elevating their own consciousness since they have a knowing they are part of all that is? At that level, or what level, is the edge of consciousness if it's constantly expanding? What is beyond that?
It never ends. Beings are always ascending. There is always more to experience. There is no beginning and there is no ending. There is nothing beyond it except more experience, more understanding, different perspectives. Remember, even the idea that humans talk about becoming one with all that is, there can still be different versions of becoming one with all that is, different versions of all that is. So it never ends. Beings are constantly accelerating, ascending, and expanding.
Okay, this person had a dream involving a blue being. She was beautiful. In this dream, I walked into the room she was sitting in, and a door next to her leading outside was open. The weather outside was chaotic, raining with winds, leaves blowing about. When I saw her sitting there, she looked at me, and I could feel in my body myself trying to calm the weather outside the door. She looked over at me, and I immediately said, "You're Lemurian." She responded by raising her arm with a smirk on her face, and the weather outside became calm. Was she an aspect of me? If not, why was she interacting with me, and why was she there showing what she did with no form of communication?
But there was a communication. She was showing you by her actions how the Lemurians were so well connected to nature, such a close offshoot from the Anunnaki, being blue tinted, most of them, that they could actually, with their own emotions, control the weather. So it's a counterpart from the same oversoul as you, and therefore you are connected in that way. And she is demonstrating to you the idea that weather is the product of the collection of the emotional vibrations of your species, that you still can be, if you are so willing, be connected that strongly to nature, if you start understanding yourself like they did as nature, as an expression of nature, not that you live in nature, but that you live as nature. The Lemurians were extremely well connected to nature and often performed these kinds of feats.
Fascinating. Regarding shape-shifting, how is the process experienced by the individual doing the shifting? If the molecular structure is not changing, are they able to perform feats that characterize that animal, like flying, seeing in the dark, breathing underwater, etc.?
Yes. Again, it's not the idea that the form you start with is molecularly changing. It's the idea that you have shifted to another counterpart in another reality, a parallel reality, so that you are expressing what that counterpart energy is in its identity, be it human, be it animal, be it tree, be it rock, doesn't matter. The idea is that from the perspective of the person doing it, they contain an overall understanding of the shift. They maintain a connection to what they started out as an overview. It's like suddenly seeing from the oversoul perspective and allowing them to perceive simultaneously all the different probabilities, all the different projections, all the different extensions of the oversoul, and being able to consciously choose which one they would choose to appear as, which one they would choose to express themselves through. Very similar to the idea, by analogy, of sort of looking through different glasses, trying them on, and knowing that each time you try on a new pair, not only are you seeing a different reality, but you are expressing yourself as the being in that reality in whatever way you've chosen to. So there's an overview, like an oversoul overview for that person, maintaining the general overall perspective. And at the same time, there is the perspective and the experience of shifting to a counterpart in whatever form that counterpart may be expressing itself.
This person would like clarification about the process of how we move to a different universe when we change. If I were to see myself as me living in universe number 813, and then when I change, I'm still me from universe 813, but I've moved to universe 814. My questions are, who takes my place in universe 813, and what was in my place universe number 814 before I got there?
You are looking at this concept from a linear perspective, and that is why it seems confusing. The idea is to understand that from the level you're talking about, it's not you, the personality. The idea is that it's you, the bigger being, that is now perceiving through more of yourself. Versions of you are still in 813, while versions of you are also in 814. It's just that you're shifting your perspective, your awareness, in a way that isolates it one universe at a time, the way that you are presenting this. But you are actually experiencing your greater self through all of the universes simultaneously. So the concept of quote unquote shifting doesn't mean that you're leaving one universe and arriving in another. It means that you are simply becoming more aware of the fact that you occupy, as the greater being, all universes simultaneously, and can choose how to perceive yourself and from what perspective to perceive yourself at any given moment. It doesn't discount the idea that another version of you, another aspect of your greater being, is still continuing to perceive itself from the idea of universe 812 or 813, while you are perceiving another aspect of yourself as universe 814. So it's all going on simultaneously. You're not leaving one place and going to another. That's just the way you experience it from a linear perspective.
And the bottom line is that basically the consciousness that you perceive as being you is always perceiving itself as being the only one, in a sense.
In a
Because it's
sense.
looking through its own personality viewpoint.
Yes,
Right.
Remember, the idea, taking it, so to speak, all the way up the ladder, is the concept that many humans have of blending with God, blending with Source, doesn't mean you lose your identity. It means you see yourself as Source. So the idea is that Source perceives itself as all possible realities, all possible universes simultaneously. So when you talk about the idea of, quote unquote, leaving one universe and going to another, that's not what's really happening. You're just broadening your perspective to see another aspect of yourself from a higher perspective, as from Source. So you understand that there is still going to be a part of you experiencing 813 while another part of you is experiencing 814. It's just that you can also choose to shift your focus or narrow your focus in a way that makes it seem as if you have shifted from one universe to another. But you're existing in all of them simultaneously.
And that idea that circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. That remaining focused on that idea, regardless of what reality you're experiencing, is the ticket to being able to shift to a more preferred physical experience.
Yes, in a sense, that's an offshoot of what we're talking about, but not directly involved in what we were just explaining.
Okay. Now, this is maybe the same thing. I don't know if you want to expand based on this, but the question is, considering the concept of infinite realities and the billions of frames we experience every second, is it accurate to say that within each person's view of one of those frames, there are infinite possible variations, each representing a different reality? Also, if infinite versions of those frames exist, does this imply that there are endless viewpoints for each frame from everything in existence? Or does it mean that there are infinite frames in relation to my own perspective, or perhaps an infinite multiplication of perspectives based on each individual's viewpoint?
Every single viewpoint, every single change is an entirely different frame. So when you say, can one frame have multiple perspectives? No. Another perspective is a different frame. So it's an infinite number of frames. Now, an infinite number of frames may not be relevant for any particular physical life. That could only involve a finite number of frames that are relevant for that life. It doesn't mean an infinite number of frames don't exist. It just may be that the majority of them are not relevant to the finite number that is relevant for that particular life. But in terms of the way that you have, quote unquote, framed that question, pun intended, the idea is to understand that any variation whatsoever, no matter how, quote unquote, small, is a completely different frame. So it's not that one frame has multiple perspectives. Another perspective is another frame.
Okay. And this person is asking, oh my goodness. You stated that all the agreements have been made pertaining to our personal encounters with ETs. So why do we work with permission slips for contact experiences? Are permission slips just speeding up the process for our agreements?
Yes, you still have free will in terms of how you experience the agreements. The fact that agreements have been made doesn't necessarily always mean that every single specific detail has been laid out. You are still allowed to determine for yourself through your free will exactly how you might want to go about experiencing that idea if such an agreement exists. So you can even change your mind and not experience the idea of the contact. The idea, again, is that your free will is respected in that context. So the agreements are fulfilled by various means. And yes, permission slips can, based on your belief systems, accelerate some of those things. Permission slips can, by various agreements, even slow down some of those things. So it's about how you want to go about fulfilling the agreement if you still wish to. The idea of your agreement to have contact with extraterrestrials is not quite the same as the idea of the agreements to experience certain things in your physical reality in terms of your lifetime, the things that are representative of your themes and your challenges. Experience and interactions with extraterrestrials can be folded in to the idea of some of the themes of your exploration, but by definition, we are a little bit outside your venue, outside the idea of your timeline, until such time as enough of you make an agreement that encounters with ETs actually are part of your overall agreement, your overall timeline. That's kind of what permission slips are all about, is getting you to a point, if you're so willing, where the idea of encounters with beings in other realities can actually be seen as part of your natural timeline, part of your natural agreement. So that's part of the process, and why sometimes permission slips can assist you in getting used to that idea and bringing our timelines and your timelines together in a single mutual shared timeline experience.
Okay, and this person is asking about the soul and the soul tribe. She says, I understand that we are eternal beings. Is our family, parents, kids, pets, etc., always going to be with us? Are we all part of a soul family and go through these experiences together?
Yes. Now, again, You can spin off and go have an adventure by yourself if you really wish to. That doesn't necessarily include the idea of other members of your soul family. But the idea is that you're still always connected and you'll always come back and recognize the family. So, in a sense, yes, you're always connected. It doesn't mean you can't have your own independent adventures.
And this person is asking, what is the source of sadness and can it be avoided? Should we be striving for happiness or will it simply come to us if we follow the formula?
Sadness is the result of a belief and a definition of disconnection from source. Disconnection is the idea. If you understand you cannot be disconnected, you cannot feel sadness. So in the idea of creating certain limitations for yourself, for your consciousness to experience, including the experience of disconnection, even though you can never actually be disconnected from source, you can experience the idea of that disconnection as a kind of loss, and that can promote the experience of sadness. But yes, if you understand how the formula works and you apply it precisely, then you also have the understanding, based on knowing how things work, that you can never be disconnected. And thus there is no reason to experience sadness in that way. So by really precisely following the formula, it is highly unlikely for you to choose to experience sadness.
Okay, and this person is asking, basically, her daughter took her life 16 months ago. Was
Yes.
this in her contract? Was it meant to be? Is she okay? This person feels stuck and broken. How can she reconcile this nightmare? Please help me, I'm drowning.
All right. Well, take a deep breath. It's all right. Your daughter is fine. Once in spirit, remember, you see yourself for what you really are, who you've always been. So the idea is that she may have gone through her life review and realized that no, it's not necessarily a part of the contract to commit suicide in the way that most people on your planet commit suicide. The timing of your death is the timing of your death naturally. And committing suicide, in a sense, is a little bit like breaking the agreement. But the idea is that the soul learns from that experience and realizes that may not have been the ideal choice, realizes they may simply have not ever had the information required for them to make a different choice. But they're perfectly fine, absolutely eternal and indestructible, going through the life review to realize they could have done things in a different way, experiencing the effect that their suicide and the choices that they made to commit suicide have had on other people, including you, and therefore sending you love and letting you know that they may, in a sense, be sorry that they did that, for it was not their intention to make you experience the idea of grief over their commission of suicide. And now they know, in a sense, better from a different perspective, that that may not necessarily have been the ideal choice for them to make. But they send you love, unconditional love. They want you to know they are fine. You will meet them again. Again, everyone meets everyone. And again, they are learning a lesson that will allow them to make more positive choices in the future. So they're perfectly fine. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to let go of the grief, because the grief can get in the way of receiving communications and messages from your daughter to let you know she is perfectly fine.
Okay, and this question is, how is there such a thing as non-existence? Does anything not exist, or does everything exist? Is there nothing that doesn't exist? Does everything I can think of, every wild and ridiculous scenario, exist simultaneously in a parallel universe?
Yes, non-existence does not exist by definition. That's its quality, to not exist. That which exists cannot become non-existent because non-existence doesn't exist. So there's nowhere for that which exists to go. The idea of every wild idea you have being a reality somewhere, yes, that's true, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a reality that is similar to your reality. Even the very idea that someone may have a wild idea and render it as a piece of artwork means it exists in some way, shape, or form, even if it exists in another form other than an actual expression of a living being. It still exists. So the idea is it exists in whatever is relevant for it to exist according to its own logic, its own context. But anything you can imagine in some way, shape, or form exists. It doesn't mean it's real in the same context that you consider yourself to be real, but it's real in the sense that it does exist in some form that's relevant for its context, for its reality. So even if it's something exists as an idea, even if something exists as a cartoon, it still exists in its own context. It doesn't mean it's flesh and blood like you are. But you cannot imagine non-existence. So everything you imagine does somehow, in some way, in some form, exists. And again, nothing that exists can become non-existent because non-existence by definition doesn't exist. That's its quality, to not exist.
This person had this dream, and in the dream, they were with some grays, and they were laughing and chatting about how scared the human race is of them. I remember telling them that they are great beings and there's nothing to be afraid of. Was this an actual interaction with them in the astral realm?
Yes.
Okay.
There is no more to be said. Yes, is the answer.
Okay. This question is, during a deep meditation moment where I was in an endless library of information, I encountered another human that is well known, and we acknowledged each other's presence. Is it possible to encounter another human that may be aligning with the same frequency as you in a given moment?
Yes, of course. That's what it's all about. It's all about resonance. It's all about frequency. Someone who has an interest in similar things to you can wind up in a similar frequency, and you can cross paths with them, especially in the idea of other realms and other dimensions that are relevant for both of you to be experiencing simultaneously. So yes, of course it can happen that way.
Okay, and could you explain the concept of density and how it relates to the different dimensions?
Yes. Density is a frequency within a dimension. So again, the idea is that third density, fourth density, those are frequency levels of physical reality in what you call the fourth dimension, 3 of space, 1 of time. Physical reality as an experience has different density levels in it. Third density is a lower vibration of the fourth dimension. Fourth density is a higher vibration, which is where many people are now heading, ascending, leveling up their vibration to become a more refined version of the physical experience in the fourth dimensional reality. But the fifth dimension is actually crossing into non-physical reality. So fifth density is the first density level in non-physical reality in the fifth dimension. You can tap into the fifth dimension, and tapping into the energy of the fifth dimension can pull you up in the fourth dimension so that you can become a fourth density being in the fourth dimension. So another way of saying this is that as you might have started out as a third density being in physical reality, allowing yourself to tap into your higher mind, which is in a non-physical reality, fifth density, fifth dimension, can allow you to raise your frequency to become a fourth density, fourth dimensional being, a higher version of yourself in physical reality that's more in alignment with the fifth density, fifth dimensional higher mind that exists in non-physical reality. So densities are kind of like states within a country. Dimensions are like a different country.
And is the negative belief that's always trying to perpetuate itself and survive actually a negative parallel version of yourself that is vying to exist?
Well, it's not vying to exist. A negative belief that is attempting to perpetuate itself can be representative of a counterpart in another reality entirely. Yes, it can be, but it exists. Not vying to exist. The belief in your reality is your choice to buy into. It can be representative of a belief system of another version of you in another reality, but it exists. That reality exists. That version of you exists as well.
Okay. And can you please give advice on how to deal with obsessive negative thoughts? This person keeps trying to get out of the loop, but they can't, and it's putting them in a position of despair, especially because I know I'm creating it. It's a no-ending loop.
All right. But again, if you know you're creating it, then you're creating it for a reason. And again, it goes back to the motivational mechanism. You don't keep generating things that you don't believe serve you. In other words, you have a belief that the alternative, letting go of this, would actually be worse. So you have to find out why you believe that letting go of this would actually be worse. You have to find out what that belief is telling you, what that story is saying that you have bought into as a fact, that letting go of this and moving forward would be worse. It's not a fact, it's just a belief. But you have to find out why you believe that going forward would be worse than staying where you are, even as uncomfortable as where you are may be. So your despair is simply a lack of willingness to discover what the belief is that you're afraid will happen if you in fact let go of the things that you're continuing to choose that don't serve you, because you believe the alternative would be even worse. So you have to have real honesty in investigating yourself and digging down and not be afraid to find out what you're afraid of that you believe will happen if you let go of the things you keep choosing. So the loop that you're talking about, you're choosing it and you're creating it because you believe the alternative, letting go of the loop, coming out of the loop, would actually cause something to happen that's even worse than experiencing the loop. No matter how desperate and despairing the loop may be, clearly you have a belief that the alternative is worse. You have to find out what that belief is and see that it's nonsensical. It's not a fact. It's just a story. And you don't have to buy into it. Again, you only choose to believe the things that you believe serve you. You only choose those things that you believe serve you. So there must be something about staying in the loop that you believe serves you. And very often that can be that it prevents you from experiencing something you believe would be worse if you stepped out of the loop. So do your investigation and find out what that is telling you, what that story is that doesn't work for you, and realize that it's simply a story and it's not a fact, that things would be worse if you stepped out of the loop.
Okay, and this person is asking, how would you teach children of Earth the spirit of Christmas? They feel torn between not wanting their daughter to miss out on the whole Santa Claus experience, but also dreading the day she finds out that he isn't real. I feel there's a better storyline to start her first Christmas off with. My excitement is more towards the magic and spirit of the winter season and solstice, but I'm uncertain about the most effective way to make this a Christmas narrative.
Well, in a sense, you have said it right up front. The spirit of Christmas. In other words, the idea of Santa Claus doesn't have to necessarily be physically real to be an actually existing archetype in your collective consciousness as human beings. So it is real as a spirit, as an archetype of a collection of humanity. So you can explain the difference between something manifesting as a physical being and something manifesting simply as an archetypal spirit, a level of consciousness that is real unto itself and autonomously existing, but as a higher level being, a higher level expression of the collective of humanity that is in compassion and love and giving and service. So it's a real being on that level in its own right. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to manifest physically. So you can elevate the understanding of Santa Claus by understanding that it is connected to the season in an archetypal way, as an actual being of spirit, a collective being, an archetypal being. That doesn't mean it has to be perceived always as a physical being. So as a child, it might be easier to explain as a physical being, but then as the child matures, you can say, well, it's not so much that it's physical in the way we are as humans, but it's an archetypal spirit that is representative of a collective of all of our love and all of our giving and all of our willingness to be of service and share and give each other gifts. So there's a way to elevate the idea by actually referring to it as the spirit of Christmas.
That's so wonderful, that I think one time you did a session called Is There a Santa Claus? And
Yes.
it's very exciting that there's an archetypal Santa Claus.
Yes.
And you can work with that just like any kind of archetype if
Yes.
you are so attracted to it. So there's so many magical things that you can give to children around the idea of Santa Claus and what it means and all the expansive ways that we can express ourselves.
Yes. And sometimes, again, depending upon the belief system of the person and depending upon their rate of vibration, they may actually be able to perceive the archetypal spirit that represents the concept of Santa Claus as if it does manifest physically. Because archetypes can present themselves that way to people who are sensitive to that frequency. That doesn't mean, again, it's exactly physical in the way that you are. It's almost more like the way elementals present themselves, by manipulating energy of the collective consciousness like clay and providing a manifestation that is temporary, but that can be perceived by human senses who are sensitive enough to that frequency. So it has to be explained in a multitude of ways, but it is a real archetypal consciousness.
And it's interesting too that it can be used as a permission slip to allow yourself to receive gifts.
Yes.
That because that's the idea that Santa Claus gives you the gifts that you want. It's this great
Not just
idea.
not just receive, give gifts as well.
Right.
Mutual exchange.
This person has a question about passion and money.
Yeah.
As an actor, speaker, mentor, and entrepreneur, I've followed my passion for many years. Now I seek financial support to sustain and continue to follow my passion and uplifting others. Any advice on navigating this journey towards financial independence?
No, because the idea is not to focus on the idea of money alone as the only representative of abundance that can help you continue to act on your passion. As we have said many, many times, the idea is that there are many forms of abundance. And if you're only focused on one as the only way that you can continue to act on your passion, then you're closing the doors through which other forms of abundance could come that might actually be representative of the path of least resistance and might happen actually more easily than the idea of receiving money. Money is fine as a representation of abundance on your planet, but it's only one representation, one symbol of exchange. Having something to trade with is a form of abundance. Being given a gift is a form of abundance. Synchronicity is a form of abundance. Imagination is a form of abundance. Communication is a form of abundance, as we would think you would know as an actor. So the idea is that when you use your imagination and your creativity and your communication, you can think of other ways in which things can be accomplished that might not require as much money. You have to be willing to be of a higher vibration so that you can be inspired to ask the questions and communicate the things that might not seem like they would work, but on a higher level would work. That would allow you to continue to act on your passion. We've told the story of the photographer that flew around the world and got paid for it because she was willing to ask the airline if they could fly her around the world to take photographs of sacred sites for free, but knew there had to be some form of exchange, which was the idea that they would get to use her photographs of all the sacred sites in their brochures to attract tourists to their airlines. So they did not only fly her around the world for free, they paid her, put her up in the best hotels, fed her the best food. The idea is that she was willing to try the idea of communicating to them and ask them to fly her around the world for free in exchange for using her photographs, which she never would have thought of had she been stuck on the idea that she needed money, which she never would have had to be able to do that. So you really have to think outside the box and allow all the forms of abundance to work together. Maybe a little bit of money will come in. Maybe someone will give you a gift. Maybe you will communicate something to someone that will change things up and give you a different path to take. Maybe synchronicity will bring you something you weren't expecting. Surprise, surprise. And thus, working together, all the forms of abundance would give you the 100% abundance you need to move forward and continue to be able to act on your passion. Remember, abundance by definition, from our point of view, is simply the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. We're not saying in exactly what way that has to happen, and you need to relax your definition and defocus off only money being the only way, because then the other ways cannot get to you.
Okay, and this viewer writes about their difficult childhood. How can I recognize my worthiness of love despite a challenging childhood? If I'm inherently worth loving, how can I reconcile past experiences that seem devoid of true love and support? Additionally, do these experiences serve a purpose in contributing to the healing of painful childhoods for others on Earth? Are there parallel realities where different versions of me had happier, healthier upbringings, and what might be their soul goals?
Yes, and we're not going to get into the soul goals of parallel realities. We're going to talk to you about the idea that clearly what you chose to experience is something that would allow you to understand that you need to give yourself the love that clearly was not given to you as a child. So the theme that you chose to explore was the idea of going into an experience where you would be forced to be the one to give yourself the love that you need, because that's exactly what many people on your planet need to learn to do. Love themselves unconditionally, regardless of their experiences. So you can't look at it in a negative way. You chose to experience the idea of not being able to receive that as a child in order to understand that that's what you would want to go toward, that that's where you would be driven to go in that direction of seeking to give yourself the love that you believe you were not being given as a child. Paradoxically, by choosing the situation where you were not physically given the love that you sought, the idea is that that was a very loving thing that parts of your soul family were willing to do for you in order to give you the opportunity to experience how to overcome that, transform that, and give yourself all the love that you believed you were missing in your childhood. So it's actually an act of love that you didn't receive the physical love. It's not an excuse, not saying that it excuses any perpetrators of things like abuse, emotionally, physically, or otherwise. But the idea is that an arrangement was made so that you would be driven to seek the love within yourself, that you driven to seek the connection to source that would allow you to know you are worthy of love. But that's just the way you decided to do it, to prove how strong you are. Remember, Earth is a graduating master class. Earth is a tough school, but you're up to the task. And so you had the strength to come in as a spirit and say, I'm going to have the experience of being deprived of love so that I will be driven to seek it out and give it to myself, to learn to do that, to love myself unconditionally, to learn that I am worthy, to state that I am worthy, to insist that I am worthy. That is the lesson and the task and the theme here for you.
Thank you. When we raise our frequency to higher levels of physical reality, are the people we interact with the same souls? In other words, when we raise ourselves to become more onto more positive timelines, are our loved ones the same souls across timelines?
They may be the same oversouls, but they're not necessarily the same souls. So different souls can be representative of different parallel realities, but a larger version of an oversoul, say an oversoul of an oversoul, may be the same oversoul of oversouls that has extensions in multiple parallel realities, but each of those extensions is an individual soul that's different for the individual physical being in that parallel reality. So you're interacting with different souls, just like you're interacting with different versions of them physically, different higher minds, but maybe the same oversoul of oversouls. So again, it depends on what level you're looking at as to when you can say, is it the same? Are these the same beings? Depends on what level of being you're talking about.
Okay, so I'm going to move on now to some ET questions.
Yes.
This individual is asking about how disclosure will unfold. Given the premise that governments are founded on collective representation and considering the diverse perspectives on non-human intelligence, it seems unlikely that they would provide a wholly accurate disclosure or even a watered-down version. Based upon my experiences, it seems likely that most people will have their own unique experiences, whether individually or in groups, such as witnessing crafts or orbs. This will continue until a critical mass is reached where most people have seen something extraordinary. At this pivotal moment, it would become common for everyone to see these phenomena, leading to a widespread disclosure and open contact. I know you don't do predictions, but based upon how things are going in this reality, is this an accurate assessment of how disclosure will unfold?
In general, yes. There may be a little bit more information released by some of your governmental bodies at a pace they feel comfortable with. But again, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the pace that some people on your planet are comfortable with and the pace at which we are comfortable with. One of the things that many people on your planet don't think about is the idea that disclosure and open contact can come from our side of the agenda as well, in terms of how it happens. You, as humans, determine it to some degree, but you're not the sole determiners of the idea with regard to your institutions. The idea of your general population and what they're willing to be open to is the greater determinant about how open contact will happen. So you have to also remember that for some indigenous cultures, open contact has been happening for thousands of years already. So the rest of the world needs to catch up. But yes, in general, your assessment is accurate. It will be a collective kind of realization that so many people are now aware of our existence that it will someday, relatively soon, simply be a fact that we exist. And it'll already be something that will be a given. And open contact will smoothly expand throughout your society because everyone will simply be acknowledging something that they already know. But there will be a trigger. There will be several triggers for this. There will be things that will happen that will allow people to get used to the idea in greater and greater numbers. As we said, there is still a high probability at the end of your 2026, the beginning of 2027, for a UFO event, an ET event. We're not going to describe it specifically, but an event that may open the eyes of many individuals as to our existence, and also through your own devices, finally discovering that life exists on other planets can open your mind to the possibilities of open contact as well. All of this will generally, as we read your energy now, occur within the next 30 to 40 years at the outside, with certain markers accelerating within that time frame. So by 2033, 2040, in the next 20, 30, 40 years, your world will be very different in terms of what it knows about our existence.
That's exciting.
Yes.
In the movie Contact, there was a scene where Jodie Foster goes through this a machine, and then she ends up in a wormhole, and then she has this contact experience.
Yes.
Both from symbolic and also just the more real aspects of what contact would be like. Can you take that scenario that they showed in that movie and help us understand how a lot of that might actually be fairly accurate?
Well, in a sense, it's a depiction of what's already happening, isn't it? Because you are being fed information, but in a way that you can handle, in a way that's familiar to you. You are being fed information through channels, such as what's happening right now, because the channel is a human that you're familiar with. And therefore, you're receiving information that leaves it up to you to determine how real it is for you, whether we really exist or not, or whether the information is simply coming from another version of the channel. So in many ways, what was depicted in that movie is what's actually happening. You are being presented with an idea, but in terms that you are comfortable and familiar with, to determine for yourself how much of it is going to be absorbed and applied in your reality and how much might be left out. So in a sense, what the movie symbolized is happening.
And sort of the idea of them falling through that machine that changed their frequency to allow them to have contact, right?
Yes.
That would be similar idea.
Yes, presented in a technological way, which again can exist and does exist in many civilizations. But again, the symbology is the idea that everything is happening in the now, that time is relative, that you're having an experience of receiving communication and information from extraterrestrial sources, not just us, but others as well, and that it's being given to you in a format that leaves it up to you to decide how much of it is real or not for you. So, in a way, the movie is simply a representation of what's already happening.
And this idea of ETs coming down to our vibration, how does this plane of reality, Earth, that we experience right now, affect a higher vibrational being like an ET? Do ETs need to be prepared as well to realign to a denser dimension? As humans, we've forgotten our divinity and we're remembering who we are now. What challenges do ETs face by being in this dimensional plane? I imagine them being like the enlightened masters that walk the earth as compassionate and loving teachers.
In a sense, yes, but you're assuming that we actually come all the way down to your dimensional plane, which we don't. You may not recognize it sometimes, but in a lot of encounters, you're actually shifted up to a slightly different level of reality that's more vibrationally compatible with you and us simultaneously. We can lower our vibration to a certain point, but we don't usually lower our vibration to the level that you normally exist in on a day-to-day basis. It's another level of reality that may seem like your physical reality, but isn't.
So does that mean that there's not going to be spaceships landing in our physical dimension, or?
The spaceships that land will be landing in the level of reality that you will raise your vibration to meet. It will not be happening in the vibrational density that you're in right now. It will be happening in another layer of reality that is of a higher frequency. And that's not the same reality that you're in right now.
Kind of reminds me of the idea that, you know, the way we see airplanes now, no big deal, and that someday that's how it will be with spaceships.
Yes, but you have to be in a different level of reality to see them that way, experience them in the same way you experience your airplanes. It's just that the transition may be so smooth that you don't realize you've actually gone up to another level of reality. As we have often reminded you, A person 300 years ago would look at you as if you're glowing with light because you're much higher in frequency than they used to be 300 years ago. But to you, it's normal, so you don't see it. But the idea of contact is going to take place in another layer of reality. There are many layers of your reality. Earth is like an onion with many dimensions wrapped around it. And therefore, there are more refined levels of physical reality and even into the lower astral than you think. So the idea vibrationally is that while it may seem as if open contact is taking place in your typical physical reality, it's not.
Okay, and a lot of people ask about other star systems and planets as if other worlds or dimensions are more interesting than Earth. Since Earth is a master class and the beings that graduate from it highly advanced and evolved, would Earth be considered the most interesting planet and system to most beings not on Earth?
Earth is very interesting. It doesn't have to be considered the most interesting. There are a variety of things going on out here in the cosmos that make different worlds interesting in their own right. This isn't a contest. There are certain things happening on your planet that are very interesting to many different extraterrestrial beings because of the nature of what's happening, because of the transformation and transition taking place. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other transitions and transformations taking place on other planets and other dimensions that have their own level of interest. So it's all interesting, just in different ways.
But there are a lot of different races of beings observing what's happening, right?
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
And the idea that the splitting prism or this phenomenon where the splitting Earth phenomenon that you've been describing, this is like a big deal in terms of galactic stories and things like that, right?
Yes, it is a very interesting, very vibrant, very active, very fascinating story. Yes, many beings are very interested in observing it and participating. Again, it doesn't mean that it's the most interesting thing going on. It's one of the most interesting things going on.
We may be from Earth as our point of origin as physical beings, but what about our oversouls? Would it be fair to say that they originate from other systems or planets, or are they agnostic to the concept of origin system because they're outside of time and space?
Yes, everything comes from the same source. You don't come from anywhere specifically. You come from everywhere and nowhere. You are ageless and timeless. Oversouls don't come from another system. Again, everything comes from source. Everything is source in another point of view.
In your introduction to this session, you said we. Who are the we that you are referring to? Does it mean people on Essassani, or does it include all extraterrestrial beings who are interested in contacting us openly?
Sometimes the we will be representative of different groups. People in my own civilization, other beings from other civilizations. It depends on who's tapping in telepathically at any given moment. So sometimes the idea of the information will translate in the plural, we, because there are many beings listening in, and that can change dynamically from moment to moment.
A lot can be learned by observing how another culture socializes. On your motherships, with so many Sassani on board, do you have large social activities? If so, can you name some examples of activities that we would find illuminating about the Sassani culture?
There are many social activities that take place aboard the motherships and, of course, on our planet as well. They are all driven by synchronism, people showing up at the same time with the same interests, interacting with one another in ways that serve everyone simultaneously. Some of these social activities can be something like playing a game, can be research, can be the sharing of information telepathically and experiences telepathically of what each individual may have gathered for themselves on their own adventures independently. It can be a number of different kinds of things that may be happening for those individuals who gather synchronistically to share an experience.
So, since Sasani beings are quasi-physical,
Yes.
does that mean that they are kind of transparent? Or is it that you look solid to each other, but if we were to see you, you would look sort of transparent, like a ghost?
Depends. It depends. It depends on the person who's looking. It depends on the vibratory level of the person who's looking.
But on your level, when you see each other, do you look solid to each other or do you look semi-transparent?
It depends.
Okay. Are there two rivers that run parallel to each other on Essassani?
In the northern continent, yes, there are two major rivers that are roughly parallel to one another.
How many continents are on your planet?
3.
Do they have names?
No. Just referred to as the idea of North Continent, South Continent, West Continent. I was born on the West Continent.
What are the weather patterns like in that reality?
As we've already explained, we do not have a major axis tilt in the same way that Earth does, so we don't really have extreme weather patterns. It is mostly temperate all the time, with a very small range of fluctuations.
And you've spoken of the day of Shakana that happened in your civilization.
The 3 days of Shakana.
Can you share a little bit about that with the group today?
Again, the idea is that at a certain point, a being was born that is referred to as Shakana, and over 3 days, it represented the existence of that being in our culture, represented the tipping of the scales. So where over a 3-day period, we all became telepathically connected. We all woke up, so to speak, into our telepathic connection because that one being tipped the scales, added to the mass consensus in a certain way energetically that allowed us to wake up inside each other. And that experience of allowing us to wake up inside each other allowed us to experience over those 3 days the perspectives of every single being on our planet as if we were them, one after another or simultaneously, depending upon our capacity at that time. So we really saw through each other's eyes over that course of 3 days, and it changed us forever.
And so was that being delivered to you by other beings of higher frequency?
It was
Or
delivered to
supported
us by ourselves,
by yourselves?
by our own collective consciousness.
Oh. This person would like to know if your civilization or civilizations that you know of employ any type of holographic simulation rooms or devices for the purposes of entertainment, much like the holodeck on Star Trek. If so, what kind of entertainment do you like to simulate?
Sometimes it may be used for the idea of entertainment, but more often than not, it is used in the way we have described in training. As I explained in my training to become a first contact specialist, where a being that is controlling the class uses a kind of telepathic holographic projection to make it seem real that we are interacting with another species so we can practice being first contact specialists without necessarily interacting with the real civilization until we are proficient at interacting with their particular culture. So we are made to believe it is real so that all of our actions will be realistic. Afterwards, we understand that it was just a holographic telepathic projection. So this can be done for forms of entertainment to some degree, but it is more often than not used simply as a training method to understand the nature of different realities before actually physically experiencing them.
During the abduction experience, when Greys take DNA from an individual, does it always happen on the ships or can it happen in other locations?
It can happen in other locations as well, but again, people are always shifted to a slightly different reality in which it occurs.
And is it true that we have powerful knowledge hidden in our DNA?
Yes, there are a lot of markers that have yet to open that will bring you more awareness and more understanding and more knowledge in a variety of ways. So raising your frequency will allow those markers to open.
Can you share with us a marker that has opened for us that would be help us understand about the DNA and how once a marker is activated, how things change?
Well, the increase in things like psychic functioning, mediumship, channeling is representative of the opening of a marker. The exploration of spirituality, the increase in awareness that you are not alone in the universe is the result of the opening of a marker.
Okay.
The idea of understanding your connection to nature as nature, understanding the holistic view of being part of an entire environment, part of a holistic system, is representative of the opening of a marker.
So I know that some people have experienced plant medicine where they actually get down to the level of DNA in terms of their communication, their experiencing.
Yes.
Can you elaborate
that
on
can
that?
help open some markers as well. And the idea of the attraction to use the teachers can also be representative of a marker having been opened.
Our scientists have noticed that most solar systems in our universe have planets that are tightly packed together in orbit close to their sun. However, our solar system appears to have our planets spread out. Why is our solar system so unique?
It is to some degree unique, but what your scientists have been able to observe is a limited number of solar systems, and mostly observing the larger planets in the system. In fact, then there may be other smaller planets they haven't yet observed that are more spread out. But again, there are many systems in which the planets are spread out. It's just that to the level of the capacity of your technology, you haven't yet been able to actually see most of them.
I know our scientists are searching for Earth-like planets in other solar systems, etc.
Yes.
And they're finding that life seems to be, or Earth-like life seems to be relatively rare. Can you tell us, like, how much Earth-like life is really out there that would be relevant for us, or,
Well, it depends on what you mean by Earth-like. So the things that are recognizable by you as a different being, even though it may look nothing like a human, that lives in an environment that you can understand as being an environment that is conducive to life, there are many, many, many planets that allow that to occur. There are many planets where life is utterly different. So the idea simply is that you're actually discovering more and more quote unquote Earth-like planets as you keep investigating. As your technology is more refined, you're discovering more Earth-like planets, not less. Look to the TRAPPIST system.
Okay.
There is life there.
Given the frequency differences between your race and ours, how is it possible for some of these government representatives to have made contact with different alien races? Were those humans able to adjust their frequency, or what,
Again, their frequencies were adjusted. That didn't take place in the reality you think it took place in. So adjustments were made, so a limited amount of connection and contact could occur. Beings lowered their frequency to a certain point, but the humans were shifted into a different reality, though they may not have been aware of it.
And this is a particular story where an Army soldier sees an UAP and gets downloads. This is an active duty 20-year Army combat medic. And he's saying, I have worked trauma emergency medicine in Afghanistan. I have numerous awards for outstanding service on active duty. Over the summer of 2023, while visiting my family in Florida, I was on a walk with my son around the neighborhood. During this walk, a low-flying metallic spherical UAP flew into my view. I looked up and slightly to the right, and it shined a light into my eyes. This happened very quickly. As an active duty soldier, I was nothing less than shocked. I have never encountered an interaction like this before. After this event, I started to receive what I would later start to call the gray matter of facts or downloads. Shortly after that, I had a dream about a metal triangular UAP with lights on the side. I am humble and grateful for this experience. Any comment or elaboration would be greatly appreciated.
You have served humanity on one level. All of these are indications that you can now begin to serve humanity on a very different level, on a much higher plane. Continue your investigations into information about extraterrestrials, about UAPs. See where it takes you. But it is a sign that you're about to begin being of service on a much higher vibratory level to humanity, to fulfill the agreement you made to be of service in a much broader way. That is all we are allowed to say at this time.
Okay, and is there anything else that you would like to share in the few moments remaining?
Only that as you now enter your new year of 2024, we are going to begin the idea of countdown to contact year one. So we would again suggest that you prepare yourselves by continuing to be truly who you are, by learning deeper understandings of the information we have shared with you with regard to the formula, making it a clear and precise understanding in your application of it to your daily life so that you can accelerate and ascend and raise your frequency to the point where you will naturally exist on a different level of reality that is more vibrationally compatible with the idea of open contact. So beginning in this transmission now, we will begin to talk to you about preparation, but you are now heading into the idea of countdown to contact year one. You have completed 2023, which was generally the end of the eye of the needle and the beginning of the window of contact. So open yourselves up to your higher minds. Allow yourself to experience contact with more of your own consciousness, and you will find us waiting for you. But we will now begin a new process of acclimating you to the idea that there is now a countdown to contact. And we will begin with 2024 as year one. So let us prepare.
Thank you, Tadeo.